Silent Force. By the way, can someone tell me what PHNI stands for? Phantom Nightmare. Ooh, Phantom Nightmare. Okay, that's a cool name. 3 unrelated ritual monsters are actually buddies from college. Okay. So they're making like retrains of old cards. Novox, the Silent Forcer Disciple. What is this? Novox Prayer? Level 1 Light Fairy effect monster. 50 attack, 2050 defense. You can only use the first and third effect once per turn. If this card is normal or special, you can place a Silent Fork continuous spell and trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. If you would ritual summon exactly 1 light warrior or dragon ritual monster with a card effect that requires use of monsters, you can use this card as the entire requirement. If a light warrior and or dragon ritual monster is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. Okay, so the idea is normal or special summon this card, get your continuous trap, tribute it for the ritual summon, and then when the ritual is successfully summoned, it will you can immediately bring it back. Right? So you can use it twice as ritual material. Pretty much. That's the idea. Oh, Safira Retrain. Okay, so Safira used to be this like ritual. It was kind of, I don't want to say meta because it wasn't meta, but people tried playing it back in the day. I remember playing against Safira decks at like regionals and stuff. People used that card. Safira, the Wise Silent Forcer Queen. Oh yeah, also another alternative use for this card could be you can just use it as ritual material from hand. Bring it back once the ritual is successful, and then you place your continuous spell trap. You can also do it that way. All right. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can this card, send a ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard. Then you can add 1 light warrior or dragon ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Ritual summon a light warrior or dragon ritual monster from your hand by tributing monsters from your field or hand whose total level equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you summon. It's interesting card design. It's interesting card design because it kind of makes it so you don't need ritual spells anymore, right? Because you can use it as a ritual spell, basically, right? Banish this card from the graveyard and then ritual summon. The weird part is that it still requires you to play ritual spells, right? You'd still need to play one to discard it, which is awkward. Somewhat awkward. At least it's a contradicting concept in that regard, but it could still be fine. It does have synergy with Preparation of Rites, where if you open Prep and discard, you can send a ritual spell to the graveyard and then add it back with Prep, which is nice. You can also send any kind of ritual spell that has a graveyard effect. Like, I'm thinking, my boomer mind, the first thing I thought of was Necros ritual spells. However, I'm not sure if Necros has... Does Necros have any light warrior ritual monsters? I don't think so. I don't think Necros has a target for this. So you would have to mix it with something. Yeah, you'd have to mix it. We'll have to, I guess one big deal here is we have to check what light warrior or dragon ritual monsters there are. But okay, this card in itself is not bad, but keep in mind, ritual as a whole is a very problematic mechanic. Like ritual monsters, the ritual mechanic is very, very flawed, just like the fusion mechanic. Like the older a mechanic, the worse it is, most likely, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like ritual and fusion were like the first kind of attempts at making like a more special summon heavy strategy. And the thing about ritual summoning is that in its core mechanic, you need to draw the right ritual spell, you need to draw the right ritual monster, and then you need to tribute one or more monsters to summon the ritual monster. So by design, the freaking ritual mechanic is -2, right? You lose the spell, you lose the tribute fodder, you summon the ritual monster. You're investing 3 cards at least to get 1 monster onto the field, which is very, very bad, turns out. So the only times in Yu-Gi-Oh's history when ritual summoning has ever been somewhat viable has been when the cards kind of cheated those requirements, right? The only good ritual decks pretty much ever were decks that got around this by different ways, like the very first ritual decks that were actually good, like topping tournaments, I remember was Herald of the Diviner, not Herald of the Diviner, the Herald of Perfection stuff, and they would use oh no, there was the Mize OTK back in the day. Yeah, I guess the Mize was more like, but that they're the same. They're actually the same example because they used the card called Advanced Ritual Art. Advanced Ritual Art was one of the first cards that let you cheat the ritual mechanic by sending the fodder from the deck instead of using it from your hand, right? And that was a significantly easier part because you wouldn't have to draw extra material and you would spend less cards to put a powerful monster onto the board, right? You would put the Mize King of Armageddon onto the field, which blew up the entire field, and that was pretty pog. Or Herald of Perfection was like a deck in 2014, I think, about that time frame, you know. And then but like Necros was another deck that in 2015 Necros came out, and it was a deck that kind of it cheated the ritual requirements by having insane search power, right? So the consistency was not a problem because every card could search. Like you would always open the right ritual spell for the right ritual purpose, and then it had other mechanics to get around it. Like you had Necros Kaleidoscope, which sent the fusion material from the extra deck, which was really good. You had Necros Cycle, which could summon the ritual monster from the graveyard instead of the hand, so you, once again, one less investment. You had Exo Mirror, Necros Mirror, that would banish the cost from the graveyard. So all kinds of different ways to get around, you know. You never pay the full price for a ritual summon, basically, is the moral of the story. You never want to pay the full price for a ritual summon because it's never worth it, usually, right? That's what I'm getting towards. Drytron is another example, but Drytron, I honestly don't even think Drytron can be considered a ritual deck. Like, that deck was so far off of the ritual mechanic that it was not even, like, I don't personally consider Drytron a ritual deck in the classic sense. But then again, I mean, any ritual deck in the classic sense would just suck, right? I'm saying this because I'm reading this card and it's a solid card. It makes sense, right? It has card effects that are theoretically good, right? I mean, right? It adds a ritual monster from deck to hand by discarding itself, and then it acts as a ritual spell for that ritual monster, right? It's a good concept. However, the ritual mechanic is so bad that the cards need to be busted, right? And I'm not even sure if this is good enough, right? Even if there is good targets for Light Warrior or Dragons, I'm not sure if this is good enough. Plain and simple. The ritual needs insane support for it to be viable. Let's keep reading. Soravis Retrain. Okay. You can only special summon with the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can only use the second effect once per turn. You can special summon this card from your hand by shuffling 2 spells from your hand or graveyard into the deck, including at least 1 ritual spell. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can return this card to the hand, special summon a Light Warrior or Dragon ritual monster from your hand or deck, but shuffle it into the deck during the end phase of the next turn. Okay, we would have to investigate on the targets of this card. Right, so we would have to check what you can summon off of this, because that's what it depends on. Soravis into Soravis. I unironically need to check what freaking Soravis field effect is. I have no idea what Soravis's field effect is. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster, discard the card, negate the activation. When your opponent would special summon a monster, you can return this card to the hand, negate the special summon, and if you do, banish that. Oh, it's actually not that bad. It's actually not a bad effect. It's not like broken strong. It's not like insane, gonna make the deck immediately in like power tier 0, the best end board in the game, but it's good, right? It's all right. It's all right. So Soravis on the board, actually not too shabby. Okay. Okay, this card is fine. Nothing crazy, but fine. I'm not sure if you end up playing something like this, but it's not bad. Skull Guardian, the Silent Forcing Protector, level 7 light ritual. This is Skull Guardian, another OG ritual retrain, which is nice. I find it cool that they kept it a ritual, but they're being inconsistent here, which bothers me because this used to be a ritual, they gave it an effect monster retrain. This used to be a ritual, they gave it an effect monster retrain. This used to be a ritual, still a ritual. Confuses me. Anyways, you can ritual summon this card with Silent Forcing Prayer. You can only use the first and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is ritual summoned, you can add a Silent Force monster or a one warrior or dragon ritual from your deck to your hand. Gains 2050 attack while Novox, the Silent Forcer Disciple, is on the field or in the graveyard. That was the level 1, right? Yeah. When your opponent activates a card or effect and you control Novox, the Silent Force Disciple, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Okay, this card is good. This card is phenomenal, even. It, on summon, adds a card from deck to hand. It is dummy thick once you have the Disciple on field or in the graveyard. And it an Omni negate while you control the level 1, which should not really be a problem because honestly, this is probably the best card we've read so far, so you're gonna have this around, right? This card's good. If, once again, let me preface that this card is only good if the support around it is busted, because it's a ritual monster, so even if it does a lot of things, it still needs to come out very consistently, and you need to get back some of your investment, otherwise it's not worth it. Okay. We have a ritual spell card, Silent Forcing Prayer. Okay, they're missing a word. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. Ritual summon one light ritual monster from your hand by tributing light monsters from hand or field whose total level equals or exceeds the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. If a face-up light ritual monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Soravis, Safira, or Skull Guardian from hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Okay. Not awful, but also once I'm not sure if this is the peak, thank you for the prime, and Insane Clouds, thank you for the prime as well. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Welcome. Pre-prep. It is pre-prep synergy. I'm confused here because I've never realized that Soravis, the Ancient and Ascended, Safira, Queen of Dragons, or Skull Guardian, the Silent and Forcing Protector, belonged together in some shape or form. I never realized that they were, I don't hate it. I don't mind it. I think it's cool that they are kind of like taking three separate cards and then they're just like, hey, we belong together now. We are now friends. All right. I don't have, fine, but still interesting. Is this Okay, so it's the Soravis, the old ritual monster, Safira, the old ritual monster, and then Skull Guardian, the new ritual monster. Okay, so I guess I see the logic. I see the logic here. I'm feeling like the logic is the old Soravis is still good enough to make a deck around, is what they thought. The old Safira is still kind of good enough to make a deck around, okay, but the old Skull Guardian, I think, is just a vanilla. So they were like, okay, we need to make a new version of Skull Guardian, right? That card is from literally 3,000 years ago. So I think that's the idea here. Princess of Friendship, thank you for the Prime. Appreciate you. So, pre-prep support, nice. Pre-prep support is nice. It's also a good target. And I say good is a stretch, but it's a decent target to send off of this thing, right? From the deck to the graveyard, because it has a graveyard effect, right? Silent Forcing Barrier. These next two cards are by far the most important ones, because if there's a good continuous spell for this card, if there's a good target for this card is literally cracked. If this card gives you like a solid continuous spell or trap, it's very strong. Let's see. Silent Forcing Barrier, continuous spell. You can only use the second effect once per turn. While you control the Disciple or a light ritual monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target non-ritual monsters for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target light monsters you control with card effects. Ooh. Oh, during your main phase, you can add a Silent Force card or a Skull Guardian ritual monster from your deck to your hand. Except Silent Forcing Barrier. No, this card is good. This card is good for multiple reasons. I read the first part, and I was like, let me explain to you why the first part is good. And then I read the second part, and the second part is almost even better because it's just once per turn Rhoda. Anyways, the first part, I don't need to explain to you why the second part is good. The second part is obviously strong. The first part is nice because this thing has an Omni Negate while you control the small thingy. So one way of getting rid of the Omni Negate would be to attack over this thing, which still has 2050 defense, so it's not easy to run over, but something like you could go Special Summon Fenrir, for example, and just attack over this, and then this thing loses its Omni Negate, for example. With this card up, which you're always gonna have, because you have this, so you also have this, means they can't attack the small dude. They can only attack the big dude, which is 4,000 attack. And they can't target with any card, sort of card effects. They can't bait your negate by activating any targeting thingy. This is a very good card. It's a very good starter even because it'll add some of these, not all of, I mean all of these new cards basically. It's weird because it adds any Silent Force card, which includes all of this is all the new cards, right? It's all the new cards, or a Skull Guardian ritual monster, which this is very confusing to me because the fact that they added this portion to this card effect only lets you search the old vanilla additionally to what you can already search, right? So this card searches the entire archetype, but it doesn't search Safira, it doesn't search Soravis, the old ones. It doesn't add the old Soravis, it doesn't add the old Safira, but it adds the old Skull Guardian. Why? You made a new one. You made a new Skull Guardian because the old one is terrible, and now you're making a spell that can search the old Skull Guardian, which is awkward because, you know, they didn't need this. They didn't need this for the new Skull Guardian because the new Skull Guardian is already included in this portion. It's a Silent Force monster. I'm confused. Anyways, doesn't matter. Very good card. Silent Forcing Authority. Continuous trap card. You can use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. During the main phase, you can activate one of these effects. Shuffle a Light Warrior or Dragon Ritual or a Ritual spell from hand or grave into the deck. If you do, take a Silent Force monster from your deck, add it to your hand or special summon it. Target cards your opponent controls up to the number of Light Warrior or Dragon Rituals you control. Destroy them. Also destroy this card. Is this shit good? Is it actually good? I was expecting it not to be. I was expecting to just be here and be like, rituals. But it's like, they all make sense. You know what I mean? It's very rare that I read a wave of support and I look at all the cards and I'm like, all of these cards just make sense. You know, I'm so used to reading, like, let's say there's 10 new cards and then I read like 5 of them are good, 1 is really good, and 4 of them just straight up make no sense and don't even fit the archetype. Everything here makes sense, right? Yeah, Diviner of the Herald also has insane synergy with this archetype, because you can go Diviner, send Herald, search a ritual, and then you tribute Herald to summon, for example, Safira. And then you can float, Herald floats into this, which is good. So the cool thing about this card is basically the reason why it's really important. The reason why it's really, really important that this card is good. Ooh, what did I do? Is because it makes it so that Silent Forcing Barrier can function as a starter card, right? Let me see how I phrase this so I don't say too many sentences to say what I want to say. So a cool thing here is that this card searches, right? This card searches, so you can use it as a starter card. If you use it as a starter card, later on, you really want a good secondary target to place with this card's first effect. You get what I'm saying? If you start with the spell card, it would feel really bad if there was no other good target for the level 1. But there is a good target for the level 1, because it's straight up, it just activates this from your deck, which recycles a card from the hand, from the graveyard into the deck, and then it adds any Silent Force monster from the deck, or specials it. And you can do that on your first turn because it places it onto the field face up. And you can do it again on your opponent's turn, and you can even use it as a disruption. This card is very good. Both of these continuous cards are very, very strong. Okay. We need to load up the good old card database. What other old ritual monsters do you want support for? Necros, please. Oh, let's see what we have. Light, Dragon, Warrior, Ritual, Search. Oh no, level 6, right? Level 6 or lower. So, pop. What do we have? 4. We have 4 rituals. Is that it? Did I mess it up? Wait. Oh, any level. Okay, any level. Any level. Bop. Okay, that gave us 3 more. Okay, we have Choo Choo Lane the Awakened, which is complete trash. Sorry. Odd Eye's Pendulum Graph Dragon. During the end phase, add a ritual spell from deck or grave to the hand, then return this card to the hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. You can ritual summon this card with Odd Eyes Advent. Must be either ritual summoned or pendulum summoned from your hand. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, inflict 300 damage to them. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell card or quick effect, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. And if you do negate that effect, then if you place this ritual card in... That's not bad. It negates a spell and then it tags out into another Odd Eyes from the extra deck. The problem is it's level 7 and the entire deck seems to be focused. I mean, some of these are also level 7. Vortex. Vortex can miss timing. But it would be a negate, but you don't have a pendulum in the extra deck. This is not a bad option. Paladin of Photon Dragon. Nope. Paladin of White Dragon. Nope. Safira is okay. So this thing, the problem with Safira is it only applies an effect in the end phase, but it's not terrible. Like, what it does is in the end phase, you can choose one of those effects. You can either draw 2, discard 1, or you discard a random card from your opponent's hand, or you add a light from graveyard to your hand. When you go first, you're most likely always going to hand rip your opponent for 1 in the end phase, which is not terrible, but it's also not great, you know, like. And then we have Soravis, which we've already gone over, and Skull Guardian, which is terrible, of course. So Soravis is really good in the context of this deck. Safira is all right, and the Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph could be okay if you build the deck around it a little bit. So those are like the three. Those are the three I would say have synergy with and have a chance to see play in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though I'm not sure how big that chance is, but that is one thing that's holding this deck back, honestly. And of course, the new one. The new one is phenomenal. Bro, I feel so weird. I feel so weird saying that I don't hate these cards. I simply don't hate these cards. They have a lot of synergy as well with all the old ritual support, right? The old ritual support is like pre-prep can be used, prep can be used, Herald of the Diviner can be used. And not just can be used, but has actual synergy, right? I like this. I like this card design. Genuinely intriguing card design. Like, yeah, no, I like these cards way more than I thought. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I opened this and there was a ritual Skull Guardian version in the thumbnail thingy in the preview, I expected to just read these and be like, whatever, right? Rituals. Cool that they gave Skull Guardian legacy support, but it's rituals. But no, I don't hate these. I genuinely don't hate these cards. They're interesting.